Thank you for joining us. This is Health Your Own Way podcast, and I am your host, Moak. Welcome to another episode. Today, we're going to be discovering how a sexual performance coach can help your well-being. So I'm really interested in having this conversation because usually I have women. So this time it's going to be a man to give us your experience. So today, my guest speaker is Bryan Ayers. He's a men's sexual performance coach with over 22 years of experience. So before we start, anything else you want to add today, Bryan?
Sure. One, just glad to be here and looking forward to the conversation. But as a sexual performance coach, I've got a lot of stories to tell and interesting things that people need to know about themselves.
God, I hope we don't scare people because people don't want to know a lot about themselves. All right. I think the first thing I could really ask you is, what is a sexual performance coach?
Sure. Sexual performance coach is different from typically people talk about sexual health coaches. And that's, their understanding of the anatomy and all the different things that go into that side of things. Mine is more for how you operate, your techniques and the things that you need to know, especially for men in terms of we need to be able to have movement down there in order for things to, for sex to happen. And it's quite complicated. And a lot of times people think you just go to a doctor, you get a pill, and, that's supposed to solve the situation. Many times that does not solve the situation. And often it'll actually exacerbate that situation. So it's necessary for, especially for men, to know what is going on. I call it the 80-20 rule of sexual performance. For women, 80% of it is psychological, whether or not you mentally feel like having sex. And, as long as there's lubrication and there's no pain. Okay, there we go. For men, something has to move. And if there's no movement down there, then there's no sex. And sometimes that can end relationships, stop relationships from even starting. So it's necessary for guys to get more than just like an anatomy class or a pill. It's like, well, what do you do every day that's contributing to you not being able to function the way you need to?
I appreciate you saying that because when I'm listening to you talk, I know you said it's for men itself, but at the same time, I think women can benefit from this conversation in the sense that, like they understand maybe what the partner is going through, address, having them have that conversation with maybe somebody like you, or seek that it's not a pill that's required, but it could be something internal that they're experienced that's affecting their performance.
Absolutely.
Okay, we're gonna get deep. Okay, we're gonna get deep, yes. Right? All right, so I'm gonna have to be honest because we know porn is, right? Like as a society, would you say that we're overly sexualized, but we don't understand what it is to even be sexual or perform sexual within our partners?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's there's a couple of things that go into this. So first of all, one of the deepest things I ever heard was you have to know your place and time.
Okay.
And once you understand your place and time, you can sort of gather what's going on. So in the last 100 years, we have gone completely different from nature.
Okay.
Just in terms of even from the lights to the food that we eat, it affects how we sleep, so it affects how we eat. And the other thing is just the communications and, especially now with porn can be in your pocket.
Yes.
So in terms of porn has been throughout history. You look at ancient Greek, they did porn on walls, just graffiti on walls. I mean, it's just something that's innate within humans. I mean, masturbation is natural. It's just, that's what we're here for. We're here to procreate. The issue with becoming over-sexualized is that it's actually societal norms. I mean, you think about it, it's like, well, a few hundred years ago, depending on which society you were in, you have societies where clothes were sort of optional, depends on where you're living. And then you have societies where clothes are like strictly, you have to wear this on this day, you have to wear this. And so where we are now in history is that it's just everywhere. I couldn't imagine being a teenager in this day when you're, you just like pull out your phone. You're like, oh, wow. And it is in a way addictive. It's supposed to be. We're supposed to, that's our purpose. Our purpose isn't to be here and get a job. Our purpose is to go forth and procreate. And so with that, the over sexualization is actually sort of weird in the sense that you think about what we're saying to each other in terms of like, well, yeah, sex is very important. It's the highest thing on the list. And the truth of the matter is the average person has sex about 5 minutes. So
no comment, but go ahead. Go ahead,
yeah,
Bryan.
yeah.
No comment.
Well, I mean, you know, I know some people are like 3 hours. I can go 3, you know, but you know, we're averaging it out between the people who go 2 minutes and people who are, you know, older adults, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So once you get down to it, you get into the weeds of it. It is just, you know, 5 minutes, but it's an important 5 minutes for obvious reasons. But, you know, we've taken it so far out of context that that's the over sexualization of it, that it takes over conversations about what's real in a relationship. You know, being intimate, you know, hugging, all those things takes up way more time than the actual act of having sex. And so if you're, you know, the predominant thing is, you know, for men and for women, men saying, oh, I just want the sex, and women saying, well, no, you have to, you know, walk, all these different things that we do, it's become out of skew. It's no longer focused in on the actual relationship that you're supposed to have that leads to the sex, that leads to, you know, the procreation or just the enjoyment of each other. And also is the over sexualization on the surface level. It's not the deeper level of like, how do you actually connect with a person? And going back to porn, one of the issues with porn is that it takes you away from that connection, and it can take it too far. And I'll break it down for both men and for women, and this goes in different ways. So for men and for women, if you're constantly looking at porn, you're desensitizing yourself. You're in your brain, literally, you're rewiring your brain. Your brain is saying, hey, naturally saying, I want to touch someone and feel touch. When you're just looking at porn constantly and you're masturbating to porn, you're just connecting, your brain is connecting something that's fantasy to your body. And so after a while, and this has been studies have shown this, if you're watching porn too much, you lose that actual physical connection, that mental connection with another human being. And so you get to a point where you aren't able to connect with this person fully. You know, you're having sex and you're checking out. You're, you know, it's like, oh, I mean, especially the level of porn that's out now, you know, you're sitting there saying, oh yeah, you know, there's 15 other people in the room. There's a horse and a pony, you know, it's just way too much.
Bryan. Yeah, right. You don't just throw that in there like a pony. Like, okay, I will behave, but go ahead, Bryan.
I'm saying it's way out there. Let's just say that. And so if you're even just some things that were unheard of, unthought of just 10 years ago, you can find it on the internet. Some people have done the game of just coming up with something in their head and typing it in, and it'll just show up. There's somebody who actually does it. It's gone too far. So, and if and the end result is whatever you're watching, if you can't connect with the person, the whole point of sex is to be there fully with another person. That's why it's intimate. You're into your mate. If you can't get into your mate, it's like, well, what is your relationship actually being like? So that's that 5 minutes. And then after that, there is no connection. And also the other side of it, let's talk about body count. So some people think that, you know, having a high body count, especially now, I've noticed with some younger folks who think that having a high body count is something to be proud of. And it's like, well, you actually, once again, lose that connection with the person. This tends to be a little bit more on the female side in terms of with a higher body count, what's supposed to happen is you're with one person and you connect with that person. So you connect with this person, you become mates so you can protect the child. That's what's supposed to happen. If you're connecting with way too many people, people say you're dividing up your spirit. Another way to look at it is like you're taking a piece of piece of this person. Let's say skin. You're like, I'm patching a piece of skin on with this person, this person, this person, this person. You got a couple of patches, cool. 3 or 4 patches. And once you get to 16, 20, 25, 30, once you're finally with a person you want to be with, it becomes difficult because now, just like the porn, you're imagining something else. You're imagining this other person is with this person. And so now you can't connect with the person that you're with because they're not this tall. They're not this short. They're not this, this person did this person did this person like this. You're bringing too much to the situation. Is very similar to porn in terms of you're not connecting. And so that intimacy gets lost. And, okay, we're adults here. Let me go ahead and say it. That whole saying you can't turn a hoe into a housewife.
Fair enough. Okay.
And that's the reason why, because the person no longer can connect with you intimately. Nothing ever is going to be right. Everything's going to be like, it's too much. I can't deal with it. I can't do it. It's because they're trying to turn this person that's supposed to be intimate with into all these different variations of people they had in their past. So
I'm going to turn it on you. So I heard can't turn a hoe into a housewife. I get it. But then when we talk about that porn itself, would it not, because you're a performance coach yourself, right? Because more men watch porn, right? Would you not say, what?
It's balanced.
It's a balance there. Really? Now?
Oh, yes. Oh, yeah.
Thank you. Okay. For educating me. Thank you. I'll take the education. But I think what I find is that more, you can correct me, men are more visual people. They're visual human beings, right? And you mentioned with the porn you're watching, would you say, like, I guess my question is, when it comes to sexual interaction or sexual performance with a woman, right? Some of the men may want some expectations from that woman, or they may think that they have to live up to what they see in porn to feel like they're performing properly. So when they come to you talking and, having that thought process, how do you rewire them to think, okay, what you see in porn is not how your partner's going to be like, or how you're going to perform, or how you should perform when you have a sexual interaction with somebody else. So like, you know where I'm going with this. I'm going to come up with it, but you know where I'm going with this.
Yeah, with that, for guys, it comes into a couple of different problems. Watching too much porn and thinking that you can perform like that. That's the first thing, because you'll end up thinking that way. And once again, in order for men to have sex, you have to have, your member has to move, and it's called spectatoring. And spectatoring is thinking that you're supposed to be erect all the time, and that's not the way your body works. Even during intercourse, it changes, different. It doesn't go flaccid, doesn't, but it's not just, you're just not hard all the time. Some guys are like, well, as soon as she knocked on the door, I should be ready. She took her coat off, it should be ready. She took her clothes off, it should be ready. And you're just thinking about it. You're increasing your the stress, you're increasing your cortisol, the stress hormone, which is lowering your testosterone, which is the sexual drive hormone. And so you're putting yourself into a downward spiral. And you have guys who, they're like, I can, as soon as she gets around me, I'm hard all day, and then she gets around me, and then I'm not. That's the downward side of it. In terms of, I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm getting every point here.
Feel free. We're not going anywhere. We want to hear this, Bryan.
But yeah, I mean, it can get to a point where, once again, people think that you're supposed to have sex all night long, and it's there's, because we haven't had discussions about it, people don't understand certain things. Like, for example, there's a difference between orgasm and ejaculation. And so for a lot of guys, they're thinking that, okay, I just have to keep going and keep going and keep going until, I have ejaculation. And it's like, no, you can go ahead and take a break. You can take a rest. It's meant to be enjoyed. It's not meant to impregnate every time. There's a huge difference between those two. So you need to, there needs to be more people like me, more discussions. But it needs to be this discussion. I mean, I wish when I was younger, I could hear some of these things, because you go through life and you're thinking in a certain way that you're supposed to go out and, try to get with all these different women. You're supposed to have this spectacular level of sex. And it's like, that's the over sexualization. It's gone too far. You're no longer, you're now stressing yourself. So it's interesting. When I first started, I was like, okay, we're going to have, I'm going to be talking to older guys. And now I'm talking to younger guys. And so we're talking about 25 to 65. And especially with the younger guys, it's like, well, I don't understand what's going on because there's so many more health issues are prevalent, lifestyle issues. Um, you know, just a good 40 years ago, going to McDonald's was a once a month treat. Now it's open 24/7. Sitting down and watching TV, TV went off at 11 o'clock or something like that. And it's like now it's 24/7 in your pocket. So, before it was like 100 years ago, if a kid could almost burn the house down because he's trying to read a book with a candle.
Yeah, right.
Now he's up till 3 o'clock looking at, playing video games,
or
doing whatever.
You be on your Instagram or you be on anywhere. Like it doesn't have to be specifically sexual acts itself, but back in those days, Playboy kind of looking women out there or men. It's I go on there. I'm just like, okay, this is too much for me. And I'm like in my 40s. I'm just like, no, this is too much for me.
Yeah. That's and so that's where we are, as a society. And it's the thing is just realizing that one, those are entertainers, those are performers. Normal people just don't function like that. That's just the truth of the matter. So it is pulling people down. It's also, you were talking about expectations with women. There are, I'm dealing with guys who have issues. So they have expectations of women that they can't meet. And so that becomes more problematic. They may end up trying to, blame the woman. It's like, oh, she's not turning me on. That's on that side. But, you do have guys who have, who can perform, and their expectations are like, I'm supposed to be able to go for a good, she can only last for 10 minutes and I'm trying to go for 30 minutes. It's like, what's the race? Why are you trying to, but in their mind, they're thinking that this is normal. And it's like, no, that's abnormal. If you want to act, if that's what works for you, you have to make sure you're with the woman who wants that. Otherwise, you're just going to be irritating.
Fair enough. And I think, I'm sorry, I'm just taken back by what you said, because when you mentioned the fact that a man will blame the woman if they're not being sexually attracted, sexually turned on, stuff like that, it just screams to me toxicity, like male toxicity in respect to the fact that there's no ownership to a certain extent or no willingness to figure out if it's something internal. What I mean by that, Bryan, is that, if something is wrong with you physically, instead of you trying to figure out internally or reaching out to somebody like you to determine what's wrong, you're blaming external factors into it, thinking that it's them, not me, or even looking internally to see what the issue is. Does that make sense where I'm going with this?
Yeah.
Well, you can tell me if I'm wrong. I'm okay being told I'm wrong. Well, you're wrong.
I mean, I get what you're saying. And that's a wrong way to look at it.
Okay.
And so definitely they need to, because it's going to stay a problem. Here's an interesting, and I need to do a little bit more research. One of the another person I was speaking to recently mentioned this, but they were saying from a poll that 49% of men who've gotten divorced did so because of sexual reasons, and for women it was 65%.
Sorry, my head snapped. I'm sorry.
You okay? I thought I heard that one. Yeah.
I got to look that up too. Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah. And the reason is, one, women, just by nature tend to be more agreeable, so they're not going to sit there and say, "Hey, you're not doing this. You're not being intimate enough. You're not." And it's typically it's not an actual sexual performance act. It's, it's like, okay, you have a problem, and you're not even trying to fix your problem. So you're not even trying to do something. And that goes back to, for men, we don't get an education on how to take care of ourselves. And so I know of a person who she left her husband because he couldn't perform. So, unfortunately, it happens a lot. And what they're saying, it's once again, it's like he's not taking care of himself. There is, even the attempt, and a lot of times, for women, women see sex differently than men. Men, we see it as a performance act because we have to perform. Women tend to see it as, a coming together. Is the intimacy side is more there. The oxytocin, the cuddle hormone pops up more for women. And so it's like, well, what are you doing beforehand? What are you doing afterhand? How are the feelings of having sex? And for men, it's like the feeling is when I'm having sex. What kind of question is that? So there are two different sides of it. And if you don't have the conversation, and unfortunately the interesting thing is women will typically have the conversation with other women, but not with their man. And for men, they won't have the conversation with other men because the conversation is, I'm not performing correctly. And so, men, we speak, women use 3 times more of the words than men do. So we don't know it's harder for us to talk to men. It's even harder for us to talk to a woman, especially if you went in and, the first time things didn't perform well. You're like, oh, it's because I'm stressed out at work. And the second time, it's like, oh, I had something to drink. And the third time, fourth time, fifth time, sixth time, you get to a point where you don't even want to try anymore because it's embarrassing.
I was going to say that.
And it could be something as, I'm going to say as simple as, but let me give you an example. The worst day of the year for men to have sex is Valentine's Day. Because it's set. High expectation, then you typically go out to eat a meal that's going to be laden with salt. It's going to be some meat involved, probably a higher, we're going to have some steak today. And then, you went and got her some candy, you're consuming the candy and, had something to drink after that. You just hit all 5 of the wrong things. And then, you're going to have the sugar lowers your testosterone, the meat causes inflammation, the stress level, your cortisol is up, everything is just wrong. And you end up, it's not working. And so that's sort of when we were talking earlier about what women need to understand about this is that especially, not especially, if you have, you're with your mate, your husband, and he's not performing right, it's better to know this information that I'm saying so you can say, hey, tonight we're going to, be intimate. So don't eat that. Some fruit, get some veg. I'm gonna make you a salad. Let's just go with that direction. Oh, that, at the age of, say 45, 46, you really can't drink 2 nights before we have sex because alcohol is just a poison that makes you feel woozy. So you can't do that. So if you understand the things that you're supposed to do, not supposed to do, then it makes it easier because there are some people who believe that, sex is a stress reliever, which it can be if you're able to perform. If you're not able to perform, it becomes a stress inducer. So now she's like, okay, I'm going to wear this sexy tonight. I'm going to do this just so I get him into the mood. And it's like, well, it's not really just him up here. He may love you, think you are gorgeous, wants to perform, but he's now getting about a good 4 hours of sleep. And your testosterone builds while you're sleeping. And if you have, you're only getting 4 hours of sleep, your body is actually just creating more cancer cells than it is building up your immunity. So if you don't understand those points, then, she may be doing things, it's like I'm doing things external when she needs to be focused on his internal in order for things to work.
I think to help him, I can understand that.
Yes.
And I think, we've talked a lot, you've said a lot, and I think what you do is needed. I don't see a lot of sexual performance coaches out there, especially on the male side. I usually see a lot of women. And I say this because you're right. A lot of men don't want to have that conversation or they're very embarrassed. So my question to you now is if somebody was interested in understanding more of how, or even having a conversation with you on a personal level to determine what's next or how to improve, what's the best platform to reach you out
on? You can reach me at, let me see, we've expanded.
Website, Instagram, Facebook.
So you can go to, just go to africanfly.com. That is where I started from. That's where we have, African Fly is a liquid aphrodisiac. And yeah, just sign up for the newsletter. You can also find me on YouTube. There's YouTube. Just go to Bryan Ayers 23, like Michael Jordan, Bryan Ayers 23, and you'll be able to go to the YouTube channel. We have a good 300 videos now, and I'm talking about all of this stuff. And here recently, when I say we expanded the platform, I took all of that information down, put it into a course, and the course is called ESEIS 25. That is spelled ESEIS 25. And basically, I turned health and sexual performance into a game. So yeah, so the acronym ESEIS 25. E is for energy, sleep is S is for sleep, E for exercise, I intermittent fasting, and S is for soul, as in your stress levels. So when it comes to the way you play this game is you look for a way to challenge yourself in each of these 5 areas, and you score yourself with a 5 or a 0. So if you score do well in all 5, you get a 25, and it will help your health exponentially. And the way that you sort of play this game in terms of a challenge, if you were eating meat at every meal, that is not good for your erections. It's not good for your health, but it's certainly not good for your erections. So, you can say, okay, I'm not going to eat meat at this meal. And then, that's my challenge for today. Instead of 3 meals, I'm going to only eat it at 2 meals. And then for sleep, I'm only getting 4 hours of sleep. Well, let me, set myself up to get 5 hours of sleep. For the exercise, I did no exercise the past 4 days. Maybe I'll just go for, a good half an hour walk. That's how you can score your 5 in that. For intermittent fasting, most people think you're supposed to eat constantly, and you're not. So you need to give your body a break. So, if you're instead of eating breakfast at, like, say 8 o'clock, you don't eat breakfast until 9 o'clock. And then, you can challenge yourself to get yourself to a point where you're only eating, you don't eat breakfast until, like, you don't break your fast until like 1 o'clock. So you're challenging yourself that way. And as far as your soul, meditation is highly rated over here. So if you're like, for myself, my challenge for today is to do 3 10-minute sessions of meditation and 6 breathing exercises throughout the day. So you can set up your own challenge, you score yourself. And this is the most important thing, is to be able to track yourself. So what will happen is, what happens with most people, we're used to routines. Unfortunately, the routines that we have in today's society are all wrong. So you can sit up late at night looking at, TV, or whatever screen you're looking at. You can go through your day just eating chips and, well, as far as fruits, like, yeah, I ate a fruit roll-up. No, that's not a real fruit. I've heard some people actually say that, but
okay,
anyway.
So I thought you were joking, but okay, go ahead.
Yeah. Exercising, people. So it's all of these things. The whole goal is to change your pattern. A lot of times what we've been taught is to go get a pill, wait for the next pill, and of course that's not going to work, because at some point a pill is not going to overcome your patterns. So, and the way that I figured this out is by with African fly. Like I said, it's a liquid aphrodisiac. It increases your testosterone in your blood circulation, 2 things that are great for increasing your sex drive, testosterone, et cetera, et cetera. But what would happen is, we're selling this and it'll work for the vast majority of guys. And then for some guys, it just didn't. It's like, hold up, why didn't it work for all these guys? Why is it not working for you? And so that's how I got into coaching, actually, because I would talk to the guys, do interviews, and, I created what's called the sexual performance scale. It's a scale of 1 to 10. 10 means everything works. 1 means you need to go to the hospital. 5 to 7 is where most guys that I deal with are at, in terms of they're just unreliable. And so if you're, when talking to guys, it's like, okay, where are you starting out at? Just asking them. And I'm like, be honest. And so, we have guys who say, well, I'm a 5. And a 5 basically means it takes a lot of work for them to just get to having an erection. And it's like, okay, well, when I took African Flower like 2 times and it didn't work for me, it was like, well, I thought it was going to work the first time. It's like, no, this is not Viagra. This is supposed to help your body over time. We call it a salad for your testosterone. It's just something that's healthy for you. And so if you're, if you're at a 5, you need to take African fly a few times before it's going to kick in. If you're a 6, it'll move you up to a 7. A 7, it'll move you up to an 8. If you're an 8, well, you're just trying to have some extra fun. It'll move you up to a 9 or a 10. But, understanding that, it was like, okay, it's a supplement. And what are the things that are supposed to supplement the supplement? And so that's where ESEIS 25 comes from, because those 5 areas apply to humans, both male and female, whether you were born 200 years ago or you're going to be born 200 years into the future. As a human, these 5 areas need to be considered and taken care of. So, yeah. And so that's the way that, coming up with the coaching program just makes, so much sense, because you can take whatever pill you want to. And if at some point it's going to stop working, even Viagra, at some point it's going to stop working, because, what Viagra actually does is cut the blood flow from leaving out of your penis. And that's the temporary fix, because the reason why the question is, why isn't the blood flow doing what it's supposed to do anyway?
Because.
Yeah. And yeah.
I appreciate this. And I feel like I've learned a lot, Bryan. Shocked at a few things you said to me today. Shocked about a few things you said to me.
Not what me.
No, but I have no problem being shocked, because what you don't know, you don't know. And what you do know, you can use and apply. So for anybody who's even watching or listening to this, like, Bryan indicated that he has a YouTube page that we're going to have the show notes there, that we're going to point you to, that if you're struggling, man or woman, like even for a woman, if you have a husband that's uncomfortable talking about it, understanding what possibilities he may be going through can help him open up, or even then having him reading it and just telling me about it, and maybe then taking the next steps and reaching out to somebody like Bryan. So I want to say, I appreciate this conversation. I'm forever grateful for your time.
Thank you.
And I wish you all the best of luck in anything you're doing.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. I love this. This is great.
We're glad to have you join us. Don't forget to subscribe, leave a comment, share with anyone that needs to be empowered and inspired. And don't forget to join us next week for the next episode of Health Your Way Podcast. Have a good day, you guys.